Well, good morning, everybody. It's 11 o'clock, so we'll begin. Thank you for being here. We felt it was important that we give you an update about where we are because this is our new reality. Just as you have a new reality, we're all going through this and we're having to figure out how to adjust. So let's start with the students. One of the things I'm very proud of is that we have made an extra effort to get in contact with almost 99% of our students. I'm very pleased that we've had some contact with virtually all the students, and then we have regular contact with another number of students. And you can see at the bottom of the chart there, I'm not going to read the chart to you or the deck to you, but we have a variety of means, and we'll talk more specifically, we get deeper into it. But some by phone, some by some of these meeting video conferencing opportunities, and then so we've made every effort to reach out to them. I'll probably spend more time on this page than the others because it's a little bit more specificity. We have three different groups of students: our elementary, our secondary, then our specialized support students, where we've gone a little deeper. Elementary is a little bit lower tech because we don't have devices for the primary grades. We have, as part of our master plan, we were going to have devices for 3rd through 5th. We've actually expedited the order of those devices, and we're in the process of getting those and delivering those because we may be in this for an extended period of time. But there are a variety of things that we can do, and we also have links to other sources of information for our parents, such as websites and partners that we have that give us support. At the secondary level, it's actually more high-tech. And that's because I'll describe in a little bit what we did right before the break. But you see a lot more video conferencing, a lot more devices that are being used. And we have an online platform, and once again, we have access to online opportunities. With specialized students, gifted kids need certain things, more above and beyond. We also work with external partners like Advanced Placement, and we also have our special ed students that we have to bring support to. But our teachers also need support because, even though we had a master plan, we had an opportunity to phase it out. Well, we've had to accelerate that master plan. So we provide support for them. Many of them are already used to using their devices, but also some of them now are having to do it for direct instruction. We had 2,500 of our 10,000 teachers participate in webinars this week on how best to use Microsoft Teams or other video conferencing opportunities. And so we've had some of our top level professional development people help develop these. We've also have a help desk. When people get stuck, all of us that try to operate in this new reality, we all get stuck. And so we have help desk. The first 3 or 4 days, the number of calls at help desk was significant, but it has tapered off as people are becoming more comfortable with how to operate in this new environment. I also want to thank PBS and KERA. They actually have a staggered way where they're delivering services for our families. A lot of our students do have access to television, and so they have portions for certain grade levels at certain periods during the time, and they've been extremely supportive during this process. A lot of urban areas have done this. LA Unified actually owns the PBS station in Los Angeles, so we've learned from some of our peers nationwide on how to take advantage of this. The virtual field trips are also very exciting. We've had some local, such as the Dallas Symphony that has provided virtual field trips for students, but also the San Diego Zoo. And so we're actually taking advantage of having resources available for our students. Social emotional learning is an initiative that is important to us. And a lot of people don't understand what that is, but really that is how do you deal with students who are anxious, have anxiety. And so we have a whole department of social emotional learning. We had a Wallace grant for $7 million with us in Big Thought. So now we're deploying those services and those tips to parents and adults as to how to deal with kids in this very difficult period of time. We also have access to English and Spanish, and so we communicate with them. We also have a virtual library system. Students get bored and adults get bored, and it gives them another opportunity to be engaged. Post-secondary readiness, you just got to really think about these seniors, especially the seniors from Thomas Jefferson. Their fall semester, their whole year got messed up, but now all seniors. And these students are trying to go to college. So post-secondary access is really important. Luckily, 100% of our P-TECH students have devices. And many of them now, Dallas College is up and running. And so we're working very closely with the community college to continue that learning. And we're going to pivot together as to how we get these students across the finish line. This is the biggest class we've ever had. They're going to be graduating with an associate's degree, so we're doing everything possible. We also have what we call external college access providers, and they've been working with many of these 700 students that were in the pipeline to complete their financial aid applications and other things. So we're continuing all that information virtually. Technology deployment. We had a master plan, and the master plan was working quite well. And then about a week, right before spring break, we decided to accelerate. We had these devices at the secondary levels, but very few schools, South Oak Cliff is one of them, that allowed their students to take their devices home. We had actually checked them out to the students. When we saw what was about to hit, we accelerated our deployment of devices to as many of our secondary students as possible that week before spring break, that Thursday and Friday right before spring break. And as you can tell, we got a lot of the devices out. We do have a learning management system. What is a learning management system? That is an opportunity where we can use our Google Classroom. We also have other opportunities to deliver instruction through our curriculum, and our teachers started working very closely on how we deploy these things. We also had, as we were part of this big initiative, we gave out almost 9,000 hotspots. That was before the closure. After the closure, you reported that some of these kids didn't get their devices. So since then, we've deployed another 13,000. And we've also already distributed 500 mobile hotspots, and we also have another 15,000 hotspots on order. The McDermott Family Foundation helped pivot some of the money they had given to TJ that we haven't spent yet because we're still waiting on insurance and FEMA and everybody else. They allowed us to purchase 5,000 hotspots, and those are on order, and they should be getting them within the month of April. And the board also approved last month, emergency purchase of another 10,000 hotspots. So the technology deployment on a daily basis, I would say that over 90,000 of our students are connected with their devices virtually. They're actually digital. The balance are more low-tech, and those are obviously the younger students. We also have one of the things where we really have to work with the feds is students with special needs. And these are the different ways we've been connecting with students with special needs. Those are individualized, and you see some places there are direct services, other places are working through the campuses, and we are having to pivot and be flexible. And this was even the United States Department of Ed did not have a lot of opportunities to be flexible in this area, but luckily they did rule that this is an unusual circumstance, and so they're supplying us with more opportunities to be flexible. We've had to make some adjustments on food distribution, but when you look at the first number, almost 1 million meals in 2 weeks were distributed. But we went back to 1 day a week meal service, and we had our biggest turnout last Thursday, and now we'll do it Thursday 10 to 1. But you can see the amount of demand that there has been. And I really want to thank our warriors who have been on the front lines, just like you are as reporters and camera people. They've been out there for custodians, volunteers, substitute teachers on the grab and go at 47 different campuses. I'm also extremely proud of our homeless department. Our homeless department has gone and taken some of our buses, and they've gone out to a couple of these centers and a couple of locations and a couple of hotels that had high demand to take food to the students there. We also changed and pivoted our distribution because we know of, how things are getting right now. So now sometimes we just put the food in the trunk or in the back seat, and there's much less of a handoff. But also our community partners have stepped up. DART and the city of Dallas are working with us to deliver food to these 3 southern Dallas locations for food distribution. Just like our food service workers, our security and police officers have been on the front lines, and they've been out there helping us manage things. And now they're also being included with the briefings with Clay Jenkins, the county judge, on things that are happening at the county level. So we're in very close communication. And of course, you know that we use one of our facilities, Ellis Davis, and we had to staff that with our police officers for the testing in southern Dallas. Just like you, we're all participating in a new, but the show must go on. We're a $2 billion enterprise, and we have to execute things. And so board meetings, you see how we meet them. Well, I meet regularly with my senior staff. We were meeting Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays as we were planning all these things. And then we have principals and teachers that are also figuring out how to do video conferencing. And a lot of our central office departments, they've had to meet virtually, and we've all had to figure out how to operate in a new context. But as you know, the business must go on. Also, we're very proud to live in a very generous community. The Mavericks have stepped up again. They gave $10,000 worth of Kroger gift cards that we've been deploying, and we'll get them all deployed out by this week. There was a specific criteria that the Mavs and our team put together as we were distributing these cards to families who have significant needs. So how do we pay for all this? Well, we're very fortunate that we're going to get at least $50 million from this stimulus package. We have to code everything. One of the warnings we've been given by the commissioner, that he's dealt with FEMA a lot, and he's dealt with a lot of federal entities, and because of the thing that happened with Hurricane Harvey and other things, that we have to have a coding as to how we spend some of our dollars. And so all these extra costs that we're incurring, we have been told that we would have about $50 million at least coming in this package that will come within this next few months to help us deal with these extreme costs that we're having. But I have not had one board member or one community member complain about any costs. They just say, let's get these services and support to these families, and then we'll figure it out. Luckily, we have a healthy reserve, and hopefully we won't have to tap into that too much. But as you know, we all have sinking spells. You know, just like with the tornado and the TJ kids moving to West Dallas. Everybody was there and available at first, and then as time waned, the support waned. Well, we also think that getting in touch with people's psyche on a regular basis is important. So my team has come up with this little challenge, the Dallas ISD challenge, to connect. You see, on tomorrow we're going to move it. Next week we're going to make it. The third week we're going to share it. And then the fourth week we're going to show it. And this is just some opportunity where we're asking people to volunteer and participate in this, because we all need each other to help get through this crisis that we have at this time. And this just kind of shows you a few pictures of our students and our families that have figured out how to stay engaged and help move us forward. So really, that's kind of, I wanted to give a high-level overview. We have a lot of questions that we're dealing with, and so at this time, I'll open it up to see if any questions, comments, or concerns, or anything you would like for me to elaborate on.
How likely is it that the closure will be for the rest of the year?
Well, when we called this, we called it indefinite, because it was indefinite for sure. As information kept changing almost on an hourly basis, as you were reporting, as I was watching your reports, it became very evident to me that this could go on for a while, and we have not hit the peak yet. And of course, we're further behind than some of these other states. And so to me, it's, the likelihood that we'll have regular school this school year is very doubtful. It's very doubtful. That's why we're making contingency plans. We've already canceled just about everything in April that we know of, and then in May we're going to be making those decisions in the next couple of weeks, which So it looks very unlikely that we'll come back to school this school year. Yes. And by the way, 11 states have also already canceled school for the year.
You have a meeting last week with your advisors. Have you guys figured out how the grade is going to be for this semester?
Yes, we haven't had a lot of meetings about grades. And one of the things that we're going to do is make sure that no student gets punished. This is out of their control. We also have to be very careful, and that's why we haven't announced any final decisions. There's an opportunity possibly to go to pass-fail, but if you do pass-fail, that could impact NCAA eligibility. So there are things that we're going to have to freeze in time until we figure out how UIL and NCAA is going to handle things. We're going to be making decisions rather quickly. We've had 3 meetings on this, and we hope to make an announcement within the next week or so. But we're going to not harm students. There's class rank to worry about. There's GPAs to worry about. And we're in a new uncharted time, but we also don't want to make a hard decision and then it impacts somebody on eligibility to play college basketball or something like that. Mr. Pick.
So when will you make that hard decision as it relates specifically to going back to the regular education academic day at your 200 plus schools? You're now here, what is it, April 6th?
Yeah.
School would typically end, but at the end of May?
Yes.
So are we talking at the beginning of May you make this decision, or at what point in time do you start to decide on whether you go back to these schools?
Yeah, well, the governor has now said May the 4th, so we would only have 2 weeks left. We're very close to making that call, but we don't want students to give up yet, so we haven't made that official call, and that's why we're trying to deploy everything virtually as much as possible. But within, by April 15th, that's next week, we might have to revisit that. A lot depends on what the county made one order, then they had a different interpretation. So if they go back to their original order, it's almost impossible to have school. So we're watching all of the state, federal, and local decisions as we end up with that final decision.
If you cancel school, will you extend instruction up until the regular time in which you would normally dismiss classes? Would you extend it into the summertime? How are you going to do that if you're not returning back to class and you're not giving grades for the assignments that the kids are doing?
Yeah, we are asking our teachers to give grades at least once a week, so that makes them stay connected. But it's different. It's a different context than what face-to-face instruction is. So we are really studying summer right now. We know that we're going to probably focus on the students that got furthest behind, that have the biggest need. If we can do everybody, we will, but we just don't know how long this is going to drag and how many resources we're going to have available. We have not made a final decision on that, but I do know we're going to prioritize on students that have fallen behind with whatever achievement gaps we have. And we have that data.
¿Nos puede explicar cómo es que se va a llevar a cabo la matrícula para niños de pre-kinder, los preescolares?
Sí, estamos trabajando con la comunidad, los estudiantes de pre-kinder. Allá tenemos más de 1,000 que se han registrado así con el equipo que tenemos en este momento, pero vamos a trabajar con ellos. Si ellos nos quieren mandar una carta, también lo vamos a aceptar.
Superintendent, we just got a post 2 hours ago about one of your officers being positive for coronavirus. Will you care to comment about it?
Yeah, it's very sad right now. It's affecting everybody. We do know that we've had about a dozen employees that have been tested positive with the virus. We have one officer who is not doing well right now, so we don't know where that's going to end up. We've had one death of one of our employees at one of our campuses, and so we've had multiple students. Most of the students have recovered, but it is now hitting home, and now that's something that we'll just handle on a case-by-case basis.
Can you tell us more about the person who passed away?
He was an employee at Lang Middle School. I think he was in support personnel. I'll have my team get you the information about that.
How are parents or people that had been in contact with him notified if they had any potential risk?
We followed all very strict county protocols on how we do that. We're working with the health department, and everybody was contacted to do the testing, and they were prioritized under the county protocol. And we haven't had anything else as a result of that.
Do you mind in Spanish the question that I asked you before? because it was for our sister station NBC. ¿Nos puede hablar sobre el oficial y sobre los empleados que dieron positivos en su distrito?
Fíjese que sí, tenemos una docena de empleados que han, sí tienen esta enfermedad, y uno no tuvo éxito, pero ahí estamos trabajando con las familias y les estamos avisando lo que tienen que hacer si tenían contacto con ellos.
You said that you were giving grades in classes. I'm assuming that's secondary grades that you're giving classes. You still have about a third of your older population without access to the internet. So how are you managing to award grades for people who can't really get into contact with teachers as readily as other students?
Yeah, and that's the great point. It's not as readily, but it is. People get very creative. It's been amazing how some students have taken pictures of their assignments and sent in the assignment to the teacher. We also had some low-tech solutions at the secondary levels, and all of the devices had curriculum and lessons already on them. They just weren't real time. And so they've had opportunities, and the teachers are working with the students on how they assign particular things to them. And so we wanted to make sure that the students stay engaged and have at least one record.
¿Cómo considera usted que el distrito está llevando a cabo esta situación en términos generales?
Could you repeat the question for our online viewers?
La pregunta es que cómo estamos trabajando, cómo yo siento que estamos trabajando. Yo tengo mucho orgullo en este momento porque me han dicho una organización federal que nosotros somos el ejemplo para muchos distritos escolares de las ciudades, porque todo lo que estamos haciendo con las computadoras y todas las lecciones que hemos acabado. The question was, how do I feel about how we're doing? I'm pleasantly surprised that even in comparison, the Council of the Great City Schools had a forum the other day, and many of us were together, and they were lauding our IT department and how quickly we got all the devices out and how we're getting lessons out. And even in fact, some of the suburban superintendents have contacted me and asked me how we got this done so quickly. So right now, I'm pretty proud about how we've launched. Now, how do we sustain is really going to be important over the next 8 weeks, 7 weeks that we have left in school.
Latinos, you see different schools, particularly elementary categorization, doing different things. I watched, for example, one school and a teacher have a Zoom classroom with interacting directly with their class using technology to have class. I've seen other schools where they're emailing homework assignments or daily assignments, et cetera, et cetera. Is there some consistency that you would prefer in terms of the day-to-day interaction for classrooms, particularly for elementary age kids, with their teacher?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we're going to have some variety and some variability because of this initiative is so big and so hard right now. And we have, just like some teachers are very adept and they can adapt easily, others struggle in this kind of context. So but one thing we said is we got to have contact with these students, because if they have nothing going on, then their idle mind is not going to be productive. So as we learn from the situation, we got to be prepared as we go into the fall. You never know, the Spanish flu had other spikes, so we got to be ready where we can be more coherent in our approach in the fall should we have to revisit this thing in the future. But I'm still very proud of how much contact we have had and how many students. I was on a call where one district, and they hadn't made contact with 40,000 of their students, and that was another district, 10,000 of their students, and that was really concerning that they didn't have the ability to get to their students that quickly.
Has the state provided any sort of guidance about, for people funding, this is what we want to see?
Yeah, the state has been pretty specific, and they've put out some models on the TEA website, and the commissioners had daily conference calls, and he's telling us you have to have a bona fide effort to continue education. If you want your funding, then they have a whole thing about continuity of education program. And so we're following some of that. We've actually exceeded a lot of that. So I feel very comfortable where we are, where we'll get our funding. But that was one of the caveats that they made. If you want future funding, then you have to have an effort to get continued instruction after this 1 week of spring break that you might have had.
said you get 50 million from stimulus package. What are your estimates, what this is gonna cost the district above and beyond? Do you have any spitballs at this point?
No, not at this time. The question was, do we have any estimates of what this is going to cost us? No, and it's going to continue to escalate. And so luckily we have a very robust coding system that we can document this. If it's more than 50 million, then there may be another additional stimulus package. Now they're talking about an infrastructure package, so who knows? But we are definitely documenting everything, and we're being very precise with our expenditures. We're also, though, to be honest, there's some money we're not spending because you can't, schools aren't ordering things right now. You're not driving vehicles everywhere. So we estimate that we're probably saving about $4 to $5 million a month for the last 3 years of this fiscal year. Of course, that would be our reserve. And of course, we want to use up the federal stimulus as much as possible, wherever possible.
What are your major expenditures in the time?
Well, obviously, the biggest one has been food because we're going way above and beyond. And then also just some, we're doing hazard pay for all of our employees. So that's time and a half. So
For all the employees working at those.
while the employees are working at those facilities, they are getting hazard pay. So that's time and a half. So that is a significant expense. And there's just those are the big issues. Of course, we've had to do so much on printing. And of course, ordering these hotspots. You saw a $2 million expenditure on hotspots that wasn't in our budget. So that's a big ticket item. And so there are some others that we're just continuing to collect. But more as to how do you operate in this environment that are the new costs.
Those 10,000 hotspots, when do you expect those to be delivered? You said that the McDermott money, those will be coming in April.
Yeah, those will be coming, the McDermott money and the other 10,000, the 5,000 from McDermott and the 10,000 from the board authorized, they should all be here in April. And I do want to thank our local partners. AT&T stepped up and said, look, we'll work with you and get as many to you as quickly as we can.
We'll do our last question.
El sistema de enseñanza en línea obviamente es algo nuevo para los padres hispanos, especialmente que nunca lo han visto en su vida quizás. ¿Cree usted que este sistema va a lograr el éxito en los estudiantes si la pandemia dura más de lo debido?
La pregunta es, ¿qué éxito vamos a tener en esta manera que estamos en la instrucción para los estudiantes? No va a ser lo mismo, pero yo sí tengo mucho ánimo que los maestros son muy serios y están trabajando para mejorar donde están los estudiantes. Y vamos a aprender qué trabajó en este momento y qué no trabajó. Y quiero que los padres se comuniquen con nosotros para saber lo que tenemos que cambiar y qué sí trabajó bien.
In English, should I?
Yeah. The question was how confident as I am, especially for our Spanish-speaking parents, that this new method of instruction is actually bearing some fruit. I know it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be one-to-one. But I am very pleased at how serious our teachers have taken this, how serious our students have had. And maybe I want to know from the parents and the community and the students what worked and what didn't work. So if we ever have to go to something like this, and I think actually I'm predicting that this is going to rock our world. We're the only industry that has not changed. You go back, every other industry has changed the way they operate, including the media. And I think this is going to force us to do things because there are going to be some students that actually did better under this system. And how do we recognize it? How do we account for that? But there are going to be some gaps, and especially the ones that didn't have access to the technology. So this next 3 months is going to be very critical to how we collect data, and then we're going to hold students harmless. They're not going to get punished for this. However, we got to learn what worked and what didn't work so that we can adjust. And this may not be our last time dealing with something like this. Or also, this might help us increase our market share. If we have stuff that a lot of other families that might live in rural America want to have access to some of the things we put together, why not? So this is going to give us an opportunity to try to rethink some things that we probably should have done a long time ago. Thank you very much for being here.
Has one last question.
TEI.
Yeah.
Clarification on the 12.
I will give that to you.
Yeah,
I'll give it to you.
TEI.
TEI, I mean, the district has, said, that was been a major driver for the success in the district. How are you going to be evaluating teachers, given the fact that you're not being able to do standardized tests to kind of peg how their students are.
Yeah, and that was one of the questions that came up. My evaluation, a lot of it's based on academic data and how our students do. We're going to have a whole harmless year for teachers as well. What we're going to do, we have talked about this, and we will probably roll forward effectiveness levels that they've had in the past. However, though, we also may have to, since we have many other assessments, like our assessment of course performance and our school effect and classroom effectiveness index, if a teacher was about to get in and become a DTR, distinguished teacher, we don't want to hold them back either. So if we have some data that will help them, we want to get more teachers up. So we have had a lot of conversations about this, and with the same concept, we are going to hold them. We are going to hold them harmless and try to honor the ones, and then actually try to get more in the pipeline. And also, we're still having a meeting with the state about the TIA, the teacher incentive allotment, and how do we go forward with that. And so I'm going to have a meeting next week about how we go forward with the state funding for the teacher incentive fund that came out of House Bill 3. Thank you very much. We'll try to do this every couple of weeks unless something big changes and we need to do more regular than that. All right, thank you very much for being here.